Namaste. So I'm going to read Book 3, Chapter 10 on the story of Satyavrata. Om Vakrato Mahakaya Surya Koti Ekarantaya Bhagavatam. Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Om Janamajaya said, O Maharishi, who was Satyavrata? The Brahminu whose name you have just taken. In what country was he born? Of what nature was he? Please describe all these to me and satisfy my curiosity. How did he hear that sound A? How did he repeat that word? How came out the success to him, that illiterate Brahmin, at that very instant? And how is it that the great goddess, who is omniscient and omnipresent, was pleased with him? Kindly describe this interesting incident in detail. Sutta said, Vyasa, the son of Satyavati, thus asking by the king, addressed in the following pure, sweet, and highly liberal words. Vyasa said, Hear, O king, you are the best and foremost in the Kuru clan. What I before heard in the assembly of the Munis, I am now relating that ancient story, highly beneficial to you. O best of the Kurus, once in my peregrinations, I think I have that right, peregrinations, in the holy places of pilgrimages, I came to the Nemi Saranya forest, that highly sacred place frequented by the Munis. That time there were staying Sanaka, Sanatana, and the other sons of Brahma who were liberated while living. I went there and bowed down to the Munis and took my seat. Then the religious conversations ensued there in the assembly, when the great sage Maharishi Jamadagni began to question the Munis in the following terms. O high-minded, excellent ascetics and Munis, there has arisen a great doubt in my mind. I am desirous to have that doubt solved in this assembly of the Maharishis. O all-knowing Maharishis, that have fulfilled your vows, O givers of one's honor. Now my question is this: of the following devas, Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra, Indra, Varuna, Fire, Kuvera, when Vishwakarma, Kartikeya, Ganesha, the sun, the two Ashvins, Bhaga, Pasu, Moon, and the other planets, who is the first and best to be worshipped, that can easily be served, who is very quickly satisfied and grants the desired boons, kindly tell me this and as early as possible. Thus questioned by the Muni Jamadagni, Maharishi Lomasa, one in the assembly spoke. O Jamadagni, here in reply to your question. The goddess of energy is the best of the devas, most excellent and highest to be worshipped. Those who want welfare, they ought to worship the supreme force. She is the Pada Prakriti, the highest nature, the Brahma, conditioned by Maya, time, space, and causation. She grants all the desires, does good to all, pervades everywhere, and is the mother of Brahma and the other high-souled devas. She is the first Prakriti and the root of this gigantic tree of universe. If any one calls the Devi in remembrance or distinctly utters her name, she fulfills all the desires of the human beings. If anybody worships her, she is at once filled with mercy and becomes ready to grant boons. O Munis, How? Once on a time, a Brahmin, uttering one letter of her mystical mantra, obtained her grace. I am now describing that most auspicious history before you. Be pleased to hear. Once on a time, there lived in the country of Kosala a famous Brahmin named Devadatta. He had no issues and therefore started duly according to the prescribed rules a sacrifice called putrasti, for the sake of obtaining children. On the banks of the Tamasa river, the Brahmin erected a temporary building or an open shade for performing the ceremony, and they built an altar and invited the Brahmins versed in the Vedas and clever in performing sacrificial rites. There he placed the fire and began to perform according to the strict rules, the Putrastri sacrifice. In that sacrifice, Suhotra, the best of the Munis, acted the part of Brahma. Yajna Valkya acted the part of Advaryu. Brihaspati, that of Hota. Pela, that of Prastota. Govila, that of Udgata. 6. And the other Munis acted as assistants. These all were duly paid their remunerations. On one of the 4 priests employed at a Soma sacrifice as a superintendent. Any officiant priest technically distinguished from Hotri, Udgatri, and Brahman, his duty was to measure the ground, build the altar, prepare sacrificial vessels, to fetch wood and water, light the fire, bring the animal and immolate it, and while doing this, to repeat the Yajurveda. A sacrificing priest who offers the oblations, or one who recites the prayers of the Rig Veda at sacrifice. One of the 4 principal priests at a sacrifice, one who chants the hymns of the Samveda. The Hota Govila, the excellent reciter of the Sama hymns, began to sing in accented tones called Svarita. The accents are 3: Udatta, Anudatta, and Svarita. And the Ratantara Sama in 7 tunes. Then he began to draw breath frequently, and consequently there was a break in time in the accent of Govila. Seeing this, Devadatta was angry and immediately said to Govila, "Well, Govila, you are the foremost of the Munis, and still you are doing your work like a quite illiterate man. I fear obstacles may arise in the getting of my son in this my sacrifice of Putristi." Govila then became much enraged and told Devadatta, "Your son will be illiterate, hypocrite, and dumb. Behold, every being is subject to breathing and respiring. It is very hard to control them. There is no fault of mine in the accents of my songs being thus broken. It is strange that you, being intelligent, cannot understand this." Being afraid to hear the curse from Govila, Devadatta became very sorry and said, "O Muni, I have done no serious offense. Why are you so offended without any cause? See, the Munis are void of anger, and they always give delight to others. O best of Brahmins, my offense is very trifling. Why have you inflicted on me so severe a curse? I was already under the mental agony. Since I have no issues, and now you have made me suffer more pain. For the Vedic Pandits declare that it is better not to have any son than to have an illiterate, stupid son. The more so when a Brahmin's son is illiterate, he is blamed by one and all. An illiterate son is like a Sudra or a beast. He is unfit for any action. O Brahmin, what shall I do with an illiterate son? or illiterate Brahmin is like a Sudra, consequently not an object to be engaged in any act of worship or of gifts. He is not deserving to do any action. A Brahmin, bereft of the knowledge of the Vedas, living in a country, is treated as a Sudra by the king of the place and is liable to pay taxes. Whoever wants to have any fruit in any action will never invite any illiterate Brahmin to take his seat in the ceremony relating to the Pitris or the Devas. The king will consider an illiterate Brahmin as if a Sudra and will never engage him in any religious ceremony, but will order him to do the work of a farmer in cultivating fields, rather to perform the funeral ceremonies by erecting a Kausabhata than to engage an illiterate Brahmin for the purpose. One should give food to an illiterate Brahmin just sufficient to fill his belly and no more. If he does not do that, the giver, and especially the receiver, are subject to go down in hell. Flee to that kingdom where honor is shown to the illiterate stupid Brahmanas, where no difference is observed when seats, worship, and gift are given to various persons. Sages should draw their inference how the illiterate and illiterate persons are treated there. When the illiterate fools become haughty, when they are paid honors and gifts, the literary person should never dwell there. The wealth of the wicked goes to the enjoyments of the bad persons for the nim trees, though abounding richly in fruits and enjoyed only by crows. Again, on the other hand, if the Brahmins versed in the Vedas study the Vedas even after they have taken their food, still as father and forefathers are happy and play cheerfully in their heavens. Therefore, O Govila, you, being the foremost of the Brahmin who are versed in the Vedas, what have you said just now? See, in this world, death is rather to be preferred than to have an illiterate son. How is it then that you have cursed me that I will get an illiterate son, when you are the best one, highly qualified with knowledge? O high-minded one, you are capable to relieve the distressed. I am bowing down to your feet. Show your mercy and reconsider your curse. Lomasa said, O Munis, Devadatta, saying these words, fell prostrate at his feet and began to eulogize him in very pitiful words, being very much grieved and with tears in his eyes. Seeing him thus distressed, Govila was moved with pity. The persons that are noble have their anger satiated after a short while. The anger of the ignoble lasts for a long time. The water is naturally cool, but it gets hot in contact with fire heat, and no sooner the heat is drawn away, water gets again cooled quickly. The merciful Govila then addressed the distressed Devadatta, your son, though at first illiterate, will afterwards be very learnt. The Brahmin Devadatta was very glad on getting this boon. Then, completing the sacrifice, rewarded the Brahmins with their due dakshinas and dismissed them. In due course of time, his fair chaste wife Rohini, like the asterism Rohini, became pregnant. Devadatta performed the Garbhadhan 1 and Humsavan 2 ceremonies and other purificatory rites duly. He performed the Shimantun Nayana. Let's try that again. Shimantun Nayanan. Yeah. One more time. It's a tough one. Simantun Nayana. That's it. Ceremony according to rules, and considered his Putravesti sacrifice successful and made various offerings to the Brahmins. Note, one of the samskaras, purificatory ceremonies performed after menstruation to ensure or facilitate conception. The ceremony legalizes, in a religious sense, the consummation of marriage. 2. It is a ceremony performed on a woman's perceiving the first sight of a living conception with a view to the birth of a son. Partaking of the hair, one of the 12 samskaras or purificatory rites observed by women in the 4th, 6th, or 8th month of their pregnancy. In the auspicious Lagna, when Rohini asterism was present, and in the auspicious day, his wife Rohini gave birth to a male child. Devadatta performed the nativities of the newborn child, and saw its face. Next, that knower of the Puranas, Devadatta, kept the name of the child as Utatya. When the son was 8 years old, Devadatta performed the Upanayana thread ceremony duly. Next, the child was made to accept the vow of Brahmachari, and Devadatta made him study the Vedas. But the child could not pronounce a single word and used to sit simply like a stupid boy. Though tried in various ways to read and write, that wicked boy never paid the slightest attention, simply sat idle. Seeing this, his father was very sorry and much grieved. Thus 12 years passed, yet the boy could not learn how to perform his Sandhya Bandhana duly. The rumor went abroad to Utatya, the son of Devadatta, turned out very illiterate. All the Brahmanas, ascetics, and other persons came to learn this fact. Wherever Utatya used to go in any forest or hermitage, the people used to laugh at him, ridiculed his father and mother, and began to chide that illiterate son. Thus, blamed by father, mother, and all other persons, this passion occupied the heart of Utatya. Once when rebuked by his father and mother that it was better to have a blind and lame son instead of an illiterate brute, Utatya took recourse to renunciation and went to a dense forest. On the banks of the Ganges, in a beautiful spot, free from obstacles, he built a beautiful hut and began to subsist on the roots and fruits of the forest, and with collected mind, having made the excellent vow, I will never speak untruth, and holding the vow of celibacy, he lived in that beautiful hermitage. Thus ends the 10th chapter in the 3rd skanda of Srimad Devi Bhagavatam of 18,000 verses by Maharishi Vedvyasa, relating to the story of Satyavrata. Om Jayanti Mangalakali Bhadrakali Kapali Durga Kashma Shividati Swaha Swaha Namaste. Om Tua Mata Chapitatu Tua Dusra Chasakatu.